Hey, everybody, and welcome back to my world, where no matter how old you get, you never need to grow up. I'm in a different corner of my studio office doll collection makeup crafting room. It's sort of a multi-purpose room here in the basement. And first of all, I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who watched my last video. According to YouTube analytics, 15,000 people who have never watched me before watched that video. And I'm absolutely just gobsmacked by that. So thank you. And there are hundreds and hundreds of comments, and I feel like I keep reading them, and I want to respond. I just don't know how I'm going to respond to that many comments, but I am going to try. It's amazing that after 13 years, new people would still find it. So thank you very much for that. This is not a video essay that has been organized in any way. So if you were expecting a very well thought out point by point critique of Sunrise on the Reaping, this ain't it. It's just me talking about this book because I cannot talk to anybody about it yet because none of my friends have read it yet. So Sunrise on the Reaping, I was so excited and I was waiting for it to come out. And I was also in the very end of finishing up the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. And so I waited like 2 or 3 days, even though I had pre-ordered the book and it was on my Kindle. I waited. And then I read it in less than 2 days, because it's also just sort of like the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Is that what it is? It's not, to me, it seems like it's a smaller book than the other Hunger Games books. So it was a pretty quick read. It was a brutal read. I think it was interesting for so many reasons. Sorry, I'm looking down because I'm trying to, so I have a Kindle Scribe. I don't know if you know what a Kindle Scribe is. This is a Kindle Scribe. It's expensive. It was my 55th birthday present to myself. And the cool thing about it is that, in a Kindle, you can highlight sections of text, but because this has a stylus, you can actually write notes. And the way I like to read books, and I don't know, I just said recently on another thing, wait, I just lost it. I closed it. I have no idea where, there it is. I just said recently, in something I was doing right before this, that I read books a certain way. I think I always read them like this since high school, maybe. Part of it might be because I was a literature major, and so for 5 years, it took me 5 years of college, I worked my way through. I also screwed around a little bit. I read books. If it's an actual physical book, I am underlining, highlighting, and writing all over the margins. So with the Kindle Scribe, I now have the beautiful ability to underline and take notes right in my Kindle. And they're usually hard to read because my handwriting on paper is atrocious, but I can usually figure out what I meant. And even if I never go back and look at this stuff, for me, the action of highlighting and then writing those notes, it enhances the whole experience of reading for me. And like I said, I don't know if that's because of having to read so much for school and for my degree, or if it's an autism thing, if it's just a personal preference, I don't know, but that's how I read. Anyway, having said that, I didn't take a lot of notes while reading Sunrise on the Reaping, but I feel like I highlighted this entire book. So I forgot to say at the beginning of this, although it should be in the title, wherever the title is right now, spoilers! I'm giving you all the spoilers. So this would be a video that you should watch if you have already read the book, or if you have no intention of reading the book and you don't care about spoilers. But I think in some ways, it's hard to do any big spoilers because we already know that Haymitch survives the games. We know that the games fucked him up so badly that he's an ornery drunk misanthrope who wants nothing to do with anyone, which I think is a perfectly normal reaction to having to compete in the Hunger Games. I think The Hunger Games is an important series right now in America because much like The Handmaid's Tale, which if you've never read the book, I highly recommend reading the book. It is a short book, The Handmaid's Tale. And the TV show is masterfully done. I will say that. It's this idea of us saying that these books, these dystopian futures are so ridiculous and outlandish that could never happen. But, this week we found out that a man was deported and put in a horrible prison in El Salvador. Oops, he was the wrong guy. And basically the government of the United States, the way it is right now, is like, oh, well, yeah, we're going to make mistakes. And yeah, we can't get him back. Like, there are so many things happening right now in my country that if you had told me, even the morning after election day, when I was so bereft and crying all over the place, I still would not have believed that the things that have happened already in just less than 3 months have happened. I think books like this are important because there's a message in this book that I love, and it comes from Haymitch's dad. His dad, taught him this concept of, don't let the Capitol paint their poster in your blood. Paint your own poster. And I think we are in a place right now as a country where each American has to ask themselves, how am I going to paint my poster? Because I'm telling you right now, I'm going to paint my own poster. Even if I have to paint that poster in my own blood, I'm painting the poster. And books like this can hammer home those concepts of what resistance looks like when it feels hopeless, right? Haymitch is put into an absolutely hopeless situation. He's District 12. The only other person who won from District 12, and so the games weren't televised back then, and of course they covered up everything that happened, and President Snow buried that shit real deep. So they don't even remember her. So he's dying. He knows he's dying. He's gonna die. And there's 4 of them being sent this year. It's like we're all gonna die, right? But the act of resistance in a time of hopelessness is to still choose to do it your way. Like, to not let them take that away from them. And, the line, I don't remember the exact line from the first games, and PETA, when he talks about thinking about it, and that he wants to believe that, he's not going to let them change him by doing this to him. And then there's a similar line in Sunrise on the Reaping. So Haymitch this is what, in his head. And he says, the second quarter quell, twice as many kids, no point in worrying. I tell myself, there's nothing you can do about it. Like 2 Hunger Games in 1. No way to control the outcome of the reaping or what follows it. So don't feed the nightmares. Don't let yourself panic. Don't give the Capitol that. They've taken enough already. And it's similar to what PETA says in that, don't let them control you, right? Like, I hope that I can still be myself and still be the person that I believe myself to be. So I wrote PETA when that line happened. So my first critique of the book, almost a negative, but not really. It's just like, there was a lot of fan service, and sometimes, like, when yet another character showed up, I was like, okay, enough with the fan service already. I'm sure a lot of people enjoyed that. There were a lot of great Easter eggs, so that was fun. And the other thing was, it really, really showed the evolution of the games, because we saw what the early games were like in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and Songbirds, whatever it is, right? And those were like, I'm like, wow, where's all the high tech, right? And now we've come into the future a little bit further, and now the games are televised because they were not televised back then, supposedly. And, the system with the sponsors has gotten a little bit better. And then to think of where the Hunger Games is by the time we get to Katniss and Peeta's games, right? Like, it is so high tech. It is such a thing with the tours and the interviews with Caesar Flickerman. I love that Caesar Flickerman is the host even back then. There were a lot of that was just really interesting that the country or Panem has become so desensitized to the horror that now it's just entertainment. And I worry that in my country that we are becoming so desensitized already to the horror of what our government is doing on a daily basis that it's just business as usual. And it shouldn't be. We're disgusted by a nation and the capital in these books about Panem. We're disgusted that this is happening. And we're like, somebody should have done something. People should have done something. Somebody should have done something. Why isn't anybody doing anything? Well, I got a question. Why isn't anybody doing anything right now in America? Right? Somebody. Right? I keep waiting for the grown-ups to show up, and I don't think, I love Cory Booker's my senator. I love what Cory Booker did. I think he said amazing things. He brought me to tears so many times, and he said so many great things. But we need action. That was an action. That was an important action. I understand that action. I appreciate that action. Now we need action. Actually, we need congressional hearings. We need impeachments. We need arrests. We need somebody to take back our country. We're protesting and we're doing the things we can, where there's the Tesla takedown. There's that great organization, Indivisible. Absolutely awesome. I would highly recommend getting on Blue Sky. There's a lot of resistors on Blue Sky. I love that Haymitch's girl's name is Lenore, and because I do love Poe. I personally get really annoyed by books that put in song lyrics and poetry too much, and it does it a lot. That happens a lot in this book, and so that was a little. And I was also like, okay, another Covey girl. All right, okay, because then in the Hunger Games books, I guess the Covey's gone by then. Because we never hear about them until the President Snow book. That's just an observation. Little things that along the way that I was like, oh my God, the Mockingjay pin. I do find it though I have to suspend a lot of disbelief about how the Mockingjay pin ended up in Katniss's hands. It was like, oh, it was put in the back of a drawer. What? I don't know. Plutarch Havensby is in this book, and in my head he's always Seymour Hoffman. So, but I was trying to de-age Seymour Hoffman, and I was trying to de-age Woody Harrelson. Oh, that's the other thing. I feel like when Suzanne Collins wrote this book, she was writing Woody Harrelson's Haymitch and not original book Haymitch. Because original book Haymitch, I seem to recall him being a little overweight. He was unkempt, he smelled bad, everything. I had a different Haymitch in my head until I saw the movie. And then after that, Woody Harrelson was Haymitch. And I feel like that happened to Suzanne too, because the way she wrote him in here is the way Woody Harrelson played the character. Thought that was interesting. There's a few scenes in here when I'm like, how come we never knew about that? Or why did that person act like they never met that person before, when in this book they've got a whole history, right? So Haymitch has this whole thing going on with President Snow. This whole thing going on. Why did President Snow let him live? Okay, so he becomes the victor, and they make him go on the horrible victor's tour and all of that. But why didn't, at some point, after all of this, like a couple of years later, why didn't President Snow just get his revenge on Haymitch? I don't understand why he didn't do that. And also, Haymitch doesn't act like he's ever met President Snow. But he's had these like really, there's this whole really intense thing where Plutarch takes him to his family home, which is like absolutely insanely lavish. And then the president's there, but he's vomiting blood because of the poison, and he's got to drink milk and the bread and the whole, get me some bread, get me some milk, and then Haymitch drinks the milk. And then he's pretty sure that President Snow, later on, he's like, oh, he knew I drank that milk. So like, that was a whole thing, right, that goes on in the book. But then years later, like, when things start to get weird with Katniss and Peeta, Snow doesn't go, hey, wait a minute, that Haymitch guy is their mentor. Wait a minute, right? Like, I don't understand. So I feel like that was a little bit of a reverse retcon. I'm not even sure what you would call that. I love that Effie gets brought in because their original stylist person was like a complete drunken loser who like didn't show up, and then all of a sudden we've got Effie Trinket, and I find her, I really like the way she's written in this, because you can see how she's going to evolve into becoming Effie. But the other thing is this whole time I'm just thinking to myself, every time Effie and Haymitch are talking to each other, I'm like, you know what, you guys don't know this yet, but at some point you're going to be in an underground bunker and you're going to be banging. I know, it doesn't seem possible, but wait, just wait. I thought, and probably because this book was written after all the other books and the movies, like, I just assumed that Haymitch knew Effie so well because for decades now, he's been the mentor and she's been the stylist, and they spent a lot of time together, right? But now it turns out, oh, she was there from his games, which I think is really, really interesting. The Luella thing was so horrifying, and it was another one of those things that I thought to myself, something like that could sort of happen now. You think about it with, deep fakes and AI and everything. That could have been accomplished so much easier. Even in the modern Hunger Games, they would have been able to do that without doing what they did to that poor little girl that they dressed up as Luella. And I was really surprised that she, of course, it made sense that she would last that long because, otherwise it's not a story. It's like, how'd she survive the cornucopia? Like, what the hell? How'd that happen? There was such a big deal about Maisley and Marilee being twins that I actually wrote myself a note. I thought I was seeing I thought I saw something. I was like, they're going to do a twin swap. And it's actually like Marilee that goes to the games and not Maisley, but that didn't happen. But I really thought that was going to happen. Wiress, Beetee, Mags, they're all in the book. And it turns out that Beetee's son is in the games, and then Beetee does the thing where he's trying to. This man spends his whole life trying to screw up the game, and I don't know why he gets to keep living. I mean, he does end up in a wheelchair, so we know he gets punished. But they're like, you know what? Even though we know that you keep trying to sabotage us, and we made sure your son died a horrible death, but which was absolutely one of the most horrifying deaths in a Hunger Games book ever. He was eaten to his bones by squirrels. It is so fucked up. It's so fucked up how these, like, the animals are like, oh, look at these cute little woodland animals until their programming kicks in and they eat your face off. So Wiress and Mags are their mentors. And then Beetee's son is in the games. So Beetee is there as an advisor when they're doing the practice, and that's where he meets, Haymitch meets him, and the guy starts to give him some hints. And it annoyed me that part of the plot was that Haymitch was trying to break the game, because I feel like we did that already. And that if this had happened in the Quarter Quell games, if this had happened in Haymitch's games, and obviously the game makers know that this happened, they would have made sure that in no way, shape, or form could that happen again. But then it does happen. Very confused by that. So there's an interesting situation where I feel like it's another thing. Plutarch, remember, we're in the past. He is way too open about his rebel sympathies this far back in the past. He says things openly where he can be heard that there's no way he would have continued to rise to the position he ends up in as the games maker. People would have heard. If he's saying this to kids that are going into the games, like, loose lips, Plutarch, maybe he gets better at it over the years, but he sees this. He says this thing. Plutarch says, and yet I still don't think the fear they inspire justifies this arrangement we've all entered into. Do you? Why do you agree to it? Why do I? For that matter, why have people always agreed to it? When we don't respond, he shrugs. Well, it's something to think about. It's like, dude, how do you know you're not being recorded right now? Like, that was sedition. That was sedition. I mean, President Snow would not be okay with that. And yet he gets away with it. My note was, Plutarch is way too honest there. So the first time that Haymitch kills someone, two someones actually. So he says, the first time, recognizing that I've killed someone, two someones, brutally. It was self-defense, no question. But I know I can never go back to 5 minutes ago. Having taken their lives in that way, it's undoable. I pick up my weapons and he says, let's get out of here. So he has that moment where he realizes that I've just done it, right? I've done what they put me in here to do. I killed other children. Like, okay, can't think about that. It reminds me very much of In Gone with the Wind. And there's a scene where Scarlett ends up shooting a soldier who was breaking into the house, and so she shoots him, and Melanie's helping her, and she stops, and she's like, well, I guess I've done murder. Okay, but I can't think about that right now. I'll think about that later. Like, that's what Haymitch just did. Like, sometimes in the heat of the moment, you have a moment where you realize that you have just done something terrible that in any other circumstance would just shatter your soul and leave you like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, paralyzed. But you're in a situation where you have no time to deal with that. And you just have to go on. And that really broke my heart. And then there's a line that his mom said. I'm going to use this from now on. Mama used to say you never really knew who'd swim in a flood, right? You don't know who would make it. When you don't know what someone is capable of until they're cornered, until they're put in a situation where they have no choice. And I think, we are in a situation here in the United States of America where we're all finding out what we would do if we were a character in one of those dystopian books. And if you thought that you would be part of the rebellion or the resistance and you're not doing anything right now, you might want to just examine that and think of how can I be more like these characters that I've loved for years, How can you paint your own poster? How can you do that? There's this one little section where he's got to go hide his pack somewhere, and it's just a throwaway line. It's like, I ditch my pack in a patch of Katniss. Because, Katniss it's a plant. That's what she's named after. And I thought I was like, oh, that's cute. So there's this scene where on the train, because Haymitch's birthday is Reaping Day. How much does that suck? It's also July 4th. And I don't know, did we always know Reaping Day was on July 4th, or did she just make Reaping Day July 4th now because of the obvious symbolism? So they, to screw with him or whatever, the Capitol does really weird things. They made him like this really, really fancy birthday cake, and Plutarch is like, happy birthday. And Haymitch is like, it's the fuck out of here. I'm not eating that cake. What the hell? You stupid? What are you, stupid? We're about 75% through the book, and the hovercraft is coming for some of the bodies, and it's when he and Maisie realize that one of us is going to win this thing. So Maisie says, she whispers, one of us has to win this thing. And Hamish says, why is that? One of us has to be the worst victor in history. Tear up their scripts, tear down their celebrations, set fire to the victor's village, refuse to play their game. And he says, reminds me of Pa, make sure they don't use our blood to paint their posters. Exactly. We'll paint our own posters, and I know just where we can get the paint. In a gesture I remember from the schoolyard long ago, she extends her pinky. Swear. And so he and Maisie make a pinky promise that they are going to be the worst victors in history, whichever one of them ends up being the victor. But it's interesting because he doesn't really do that. He does get broken for a really, really, really long time. And yes, is he a drunken loser of a victor? But did anyone expect the victor from District 12 to be awesome and cool and a plaything of the Capitol in a good, in a Finnick O'Dare kind of way? No, I don't think anyone expected that of District 12. So there was this thing where Maisie did this thing where each of them had a token from their district, and she ends up weaving a lot of them into necklaces, and that's how they hide the explosives. She weaves the fuses and stuff into necklaces. It's a very cool thing. Although I feel like maybe the Capitol would have had bomb sniffing technology, but whatever. But then the little guy, the one guy has a bicycle bell, and I am trying to figure out how big, because it sounds like the token you're allowed to bring a little something, right? But a bicycle bell is a fairly substantial size, right? So I'm like, how did she weave a bicycle bell into a necklace? So Welly was one of the little skinny underfed, he calls them his doves. He's so worried about these kids. He tries to do what he can, but he knows there's only so much he can do. And so this one little kid, Welly, is a sweet sweet kid. So rounding a final clump of saplings, I freeze in horror at what awaits. Silka stands like a statue, her snot green outfit splattered in bright red. In her right hand her axe, her left hand holds Welly's head, eyes still open, mouth agape. The only movement, the only sound comes from the blood dripping in the pine needles on the forest floor. Welly's body lies crumpled in a heap a few feet away. The shiny bicycle bell. The blowgun. The child-sized boots. The tiny knife in her bird claw. Dove-colored feathers. A headless baby chick. So, obviously, Hamish Abernathy won the quarter quell. And as the victor, one of the things that they do to him is they put him in a bird cage at a party. So he says, the after party's held in the ballroom of the presidential mansion. I'm displayed in a giant golden bird cage that dangles from the main chandelier. Mockingjay? Bird cage? It's interesting. And the guests are feeding him through the cage like he's a pet. It's absolutely disgusting, absolutely disgusting. And he says, people bring me tidbits, feeding me by hand like you would a pet dog, and I smack my lips with appreciation, eating until my shrunken belly is likely to split open. I'm hoping they're not showing this in District 12. People may forgive, but they won't forget such behavior, especially since I won't get credit for all of the trouble I caused, which has landed me in this cage. This is how Snow is punishing him, is making him do this. And it's just, and then they send him on the whole Victor's tour from hell. Then there's the end. So Hamish, at the beginning of the story, he gets some sweets to give to his girl Lenore. Then he gets reaped. He gives the candy to his brother to give to her. And then, of course, because President Snow is so freaking evil, this is what he does. So Lenore, they hook back up. Okay, he's home, he's gone on the tour and everything, and he gets a minute alone with Lenore. So he should have known. I feel like he should have known when he saw this. So he's like looking for her, and he's waiting for her, and but he's trying not to get caught. And she's been let out of prison because she was held. I don't know why they didn't kill her right off, but this is how sick President Snow is. Now, I don't know how he didn't see this coming. So her geese come back, she's all excited, and it says she's about to roost on her favorite rock when she gives an exclamation of surprise and scoops something up. It's my bag of gumdrops, the ones I had Sid deliver to her after the reaping. I guess she left them here before she went to perform that night. You've been gone a long time, Hamish. How waterproof was this bag that you think it's been sitting out here, outdoors, this whole time, and she just finds it? And it's so bad that they reunite, they're hugging, you came back, and he's like, and you didn't get hanged. And they hold each other so tight, it's like they're one person. And then they sink into the meadow grass, hands clasped. She reaches for the bag of gumdrops that she dropped. Thanks for the candy. Gosh, look how hard I'm shaking. This was so bad. Here, I say, taking the bag, not that I'm any steadier. I pluck a sweet from the bag and pop it into her mouth. Turns out, those were poison. And he tries to get her to throw it up, but it's all in vain. He's like, do you have charcoal tablets? What do you have? Makes you hate President Snow so much. And even though, like, you know, so I read his book, and I did not come away from reading his book and being like, well, now I understand him so much more, and he's sympathetic. He is in no way sympathetic. I didn't have sympathy with him then. I understood he was going through some hard times. She pulled a lot of emotional strings in that thing, but I gotta say, I never warmed up to him. I was like, oh, he's in love, so now we have to care. No, because I know who he's going to become. Anybody who could do the things that he did always had the capability to be a psychopath or a sociopath, right? So I don't even know how much of what he tells himself and what he thinks in that book is reality, and how much of it is him just trying to fool himself into thinking he's a better guy than he really is, because he's just a horrible, horrible human being. He's a megalomaniac. He's a horrible human being. And that is just, I expected her to have been hanged when he got home. I expected him to find out that they had killed her, or that they killed her the night he won, or that when Hamish won, that Snow had her killed. I really didn't expect it to be this horrifying. It was awful. He put the candy in her mouth. I don't even know. So, like, you know, everything that Hamish becomes after that, because I feel like, having been through everything he's been through, and now he comes back, and this last horrible thing happens at that point, then so that's when you're like, fuck it, I give up. I can't win. I don't even know why he keeps living, quite honestly. I honestly don't know how he I guess he thinks to himself, well, somebody's going to have to mentor 2 kids every year and watch them die. That's my life now. And that is what his life becomes. And that's horrible. So it's like, it's a really sad book. I think it was a very good book. Like I said, I do feel like there was a little bit too much fan service and some questions that I've enumerated here. Please let me know in the comments. Did you think there was a good amount of fan service? Too much, not enough, too many Easter eggs, not enough Easter eggs? And just generally, I want to know what you thought about the book if you read it. Where am I off base? What did I miss? I mean, I know I missed a lot. Couldn't cover every thought I ever had in this video, but I would really love to hear your reactions, because I have nobody to talk to about this book yet, because no one's read it. Come on, people, catch up. I need my friends to catch up. So I hope this was of some interest to you in any way whatsoever. Like I said, it was not a professionally scripted essay. on the book. It was just my thoughts because I wanted to share them in some way. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to hear more of my really weird, it wasn't really a book review, I don't even know what it was, let me know. I have going back to dolls, going back to the doll world for a minute. I got gifted something amazing from Mattel, and I also got gifted something from Moose. I was at Toy Fair, and so they followed up and they're like, "Can we send you some stuff?" And I was like, "Wait, right now, free dolls would be so freaking awesome! Yes, please send me the free dolls." So that's going to be coming. I'm going to try to film those this weekend. Tomorrow, I have to go have more brain MRIs and something called an MRV, where they're going to MRI the veins in my brain. The veins in your brain stay mainly on the plane. So yeah, that's what I'm doing with my Saturday. Yay. Anyway, I appreciate all of you who've stayed with me over the years. Those of you who found me for the first time, thank you. And those of you who are excited for new doll content, I'm really going to try to get to it soon. Maybe Sunday. We'll see how I'm feeling after everything tomorrow. Because sometimes the day after an MRI series, I feel a little weird. So maybe it's just the stress. But all right, I suck at ending videos. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment, subscribe, do all the things, and I will see you again sooner, hopefully, rather than later. Thanks for watching. Bye!